Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a round review. This time we're talking about what we learnt from the pre-season games, the second load of them. So this is the final games we will see before round 0. Yes, not round 1, round fucking 0. Starting off, and this is uncut by the way, starting off with Collingwood Richmond. And look, to be honest, this was a pretty scrappy game, very inaccurate. Collingwood won 76-46, but both teams inaccurate, kicking 16 points each. Richmond kicking over 3 times the amount of points than goals they got on the day. I thought Richmond looked competitive again. They beat Melbourne in the first pre-season match. This time they did well against Collingwood, albeit Collingwood did get dominated by North Melbourne. So, like with pre-season, these sort of, these things happen. A bit of a scrap in there as well with Mason Cox and Pickett and some of the other boys there, which was nice to see, dare I say. Overall from the game, not much to learn about either team, if I'm being completely honest. The regulars were good, Dacos was good, thought some of the Richmond players were good. Even players like Lockie Schultz was good from memory. Yeah, it was a decent game. Hoskin Elliott, Pat Lipinski I thought was very impressive. Not much standout there. Overall, a pretty stock standard game with players like DeGoey, Dacos playing well, Taranto, Dustin playing well. Pretty boring. Graham did a quad though, I'm pretty sure, which is never good in any sport for that. But you know, losing Jack Graham is not what we want. Moving on to, I think, one of the big upsets of the round. Carlton lost 63 to Melbourne's 101. And keep this in mind, Carlton kicked 10 goals 3, which is extremely accurate. Compare that to Melbourne's 15 goals 11, which is still accurate. But 10 goals 3, that accuracy, you know, they nearly lost by 40 points and they were still extraordinarily accurate, which is highly concerning. And this is Melbourne's second defeat, and I put a TikTok out there, follow it, FTFooty, about how in 2019 pre-season, Melbourne lost both pre-season or all their pre-season games. People were like, no, they'll still make finals, they'll still, make the prelims. They capitulate. Not that this will happen to Carlton, because they definitely have the list for it, but 2 pre-season losses, bad losses as well. I think they got easily dispatched off by Geelong, and then Melbourne, who are in tatters, have demolished them as well. It's hard to tell because Melbourne are a really good side, but because of all the culture problems, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. But there's one thing, if you're a Carlton fan, you are really nervous because these pre-season games are not what you expected of your team. Carlton, Harry Mackay played well, Kerno played well. In terms of players for Melbourne, Sparrow seems to be the guy. Sparrow's going to hit breakout season for Tom Sparrow. Gawn's looking good. Even players like Shaki kicked 2 goals. So decent performances, but definitely Sparrow's, I think, the big player from that game. I thought he was phenomenal. And if you are a Melbourne fan, you will not be too worried about the outgoings of Melbourne midfielders in the off-season because you have players like Sparrow coming in. Next up, Sydney Lions. This is uncut, like I said, so mistakes will happen. Pretty surprising how well Brisbane played. Sydney technically home, but none of this is home ground. Sydney lost 56-81. All in all, pretty disappointing if you're a Sydney supporter because the Lions easily won. There's not much else about it. We haven't learned anything from this. Hugh McCluggage was really good. Errol Goulding was fantastic. We're looking at James Jordan as well, looked like a phenomenal player. Like watching the highlights, he looked like a really good player and he's seamlessly slotted into that team. Sydney didn't have multiple goal kickers, not one, so a bit of a problem there. Goulding looked amazing, like I said, but unfortunately, Brisbane come away with the chocolates, and we haven't learned anything from that. We have learned a lot from this next game. GWS 105 beats the Suns 61. It's a 44-point win. The Suns looked atrocious. I'm looking at the timeline here. In midway through the third quarter, they were up by around 70 points the Giants were up, so they obviously stepped off the gas. You know, if that's a normal footy game, they'd probably win by 100 points there, because 70 points halfway to the third quarter. Embarrassing for the Suns. What we've learned here is those people who are overhyping the Suns saying they're going to make the finals know nothing about football. They don't understand that when you get a new coach, after, you know, the old coach had been drilling his system into that team for 7 odd years, that new coach is going to find it hard to have an influence straight away. So many different changes to systems, to ideologies, to basically everything about the game. And the Giants look dominant. They've looked good both games. They absolutely killed the Suns. They looked hopeless. They looked useless. Apart from Lukosius, the Suns looked shit. I'm just going to put it blatantly. They looked really bad. And then, you know, players like Green are just too good, unfortunately. But what we learned from that game is the Suns just aren't this. The next game, I think, is another funny one. Essendon, 2 preseason losses. Geelong, 2 preseason wins. What does that say? Maybe Essendon are doomed for a bottom 4 finish, perhaps. Now, Essendon did play well throughout the game. I thought they should have won, but in the last quarter, maybe it's a reflection of fitness, but Essendon were up by 10 points in the last quarter, and then Geelong ended up winning 83-71, 2 goals. And they were more inaccurate, Geelong. I wouldn't be too worried if you're an Essendon fan. The one worrying thing is Jordan Ridley got an injury, and that is not good. He will be out for a while with that quad. He's just signed a massive contract extension as well. Highly concerning if you're an Essendon fan that one of your star players keeps getting injured. And this looks like a really bad one as well. Not good. Geelong, Stengel looked really good. Thought Langford played all right for Essendon. Yeah, pretty stock standard to be completely honest, but really the only talking point is Ridley getting that bad injury. This next game I actually watched in its entirety. Why? Because fucking why not? It was pretty boring. Port Adelaide beat Fremantle 92-53. Super stock standard game. Port Adelaide dominated the whole thing. It was never really competitive, to be completely honest. Port Adelaide looked good. Their defenders looked really good. Aaliyah was great. But Asava Radaglia, he slotted in perfectly. Burton and Houston in the backline looked good. Rosie's looking really good as the captain. He seems to be playing really well. They had loads of contributors, Port Adelaide. Fremantle looked alright. Fife looks good. They played alright. Butters with a little ankle problem there. All in all, nothing really learnt from that game other than the fact that Port Adelaide probably are just way better than Fremantle. And that's a reflection of what will come this season. The next game as well, you don't learn anything from it. The Crows, 117, beat West Coast's 50 points. Demolition, which is what we expect. They roughed up Harley Reid, who had a pretty troublesome day. Tim Kelly was the only good performer, I thought, for West Coast. He stood tall. But Adelaide, Rankin and Rochelle up forward absolutely dominated them. And yeah, they looked completely lost for answers, West Coast. It's going to be a long season if you're a West Coast fan. As this next game, Hawthorn 62 lost to the Dogs 119. This was not good. Now, Hawthorn were actually winning up until just before halfway through the third quarter. And then the Dogs piled on I don't even know how many goals, like 10 goals or some shit. They just piled on the Sorrow heads. But they were very inaccurate. 2 goals, 12. Going into halftime were the Western Bulldogs. So, you know what? They probably deserved to win by that much in the end anyway. Not good for Hawthorn. These injuries are taking a toll now. I've been so bullish on them as of the last couple of weeks. Now I'm starting to retract my bullishness on them because they got dominated both preseason games, albeit against the Dogs, and they look hopeless. Norton kicked 4, Ugle-Hagan kicked 4, West kicked 3. Apart from Newcomb, I was not impressed at all. I was not impressed. Bontempelli absolutely tore them a new one as well. And if you're the Dogs, you're pretty excited with what had happened. But if you're Hawthorn, you're not looking forward to the season. This last game, St Kilda beat the North Melbourne Football Club 84-65. 11 goals, 18 for St Kilda. Should have won by more, but just that inaccuracy let them down. I thought North Melbourne were quite competitive. The one talking point is Jimmy Webster's bump on Jai Simpkin. Bad bump. Pal Pepper already got the 3-week suspension from last week's preseason games on the bump, and Webster's probably going to get 2 to 3 weeks. You would think. We're not so sure about that though. Overall, I was impressed with both teams. St Kilda look good. They are looking really good. Players like Liam Henry's playing well. And how about Zach Fisher getting, I think, like 36 touches or something along the lines there. Harry Sheasel had a phenomenal game as well. I mean, North Melbourne probably had as many good players, if not more than St Kilda, like standout players, but St Kilda are just clearly a better system team. And I think that stood out. So that's pretty much it. In terms of the big winners and losers from this round, the big losers for me are Hawthorn. I thought that was glaring. I think Gold Coast are big losers as well, and the Carlton Football Club. In terms of the big winners, aren't many big winners for me. I would say Brisbane, the fact they dismissed Sydney so easily, and I think Sydney have a phenomenal list. I think Sydney are the big winners. I think Geelong are the big winners. I mean, they've dispatched 2 teams now. And I would also put the Western Bulldogs as big winners because the Dogs, like I said, they've looked decent for 2 weeks. And if their forwards fire and the midfields fire, they just need a decent defence. All in all, nothing too surprising. I think if you're a Carlton fan, you're an Essendon fan, Hawthorn fan, Gold Coast fan, you're getting nervous. You're getting really nervous. But for the other fans, you're probably a bit excited. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is going to be a weekly series, so make sure you subscribe to the channel because on Monday, every week, depends, some games are on Monday, like Anzac Day game and shit, I'm pretty sure. But on Mondays, generally, I will be uploading these. So stay tuned for them. It's a little recap. Who won, who lost, injuries, suspensions, the like. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below how dusty and dead my trim is because I need to go to the fucking barbers. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in another one.